Blaenavon initiative started in 1997, that's 20 years ago. And the main aim of the project was to find a sustainable future for the town of Blaenavon, which had suffered severely from economic, social and physical decline because of the demise of the local iron, steel and coal industries. The people in the town were disillusioned and indeed angry. Something had to be done. And we saw right away that the only advantage Blaenavon had over other places was its very interesting industrial heritage. We had this idea, could we go for World Heritage Site status and use that to have heritage-led regeneration by attracting funding because of its unique heritage status. In 1997, we held a conference when we invited tourism and heritage experts together with the local people to consider the question, could we possibly build a future on the past and go for World Heritage Site status? And there was overwhelming support for the proposal. World Heritage Sites are of outstanding universal value, but there are a range of sites ranging from the pyramids in Egypt to the nuclear bomb site at Hiroshima. The question was, for us, could the broken mineral landscape on top of the mountain with the former workings and tippings and a rundown valley's town possibly be a World Heritage Site and on the same page as Stonehenge? Where is Blaenavon? Blaenavon is in the southeast corner of Wales. It's quite near to the English boundary. It's about an hour's drive from Bristol and about 40 minutes drive from Cardiff. This was the challenge we faced. Before 1800, there was virtually no population in this mountain area. But after the Blaenavon Ironworks were established in 1789, the population grew very quickly, and it actually peaked after the First World War at about 12,500. The decline was almost as dramatic, and by the time the project started, it was under 6,000 people. When we were seeking World Heritage Site status, this photograph appeared in a national newspaper calling the town Plywood City. It was indeed challenging. And in the face of such criticism, could we possibly become a World Heritage Site? In fact, we jumped over possibly 300 sites to become a World Heritage Site. And the reason why is that the area around Blaenavon is evidence of the preeminence of South Wales as a major producer of iron, steel and coal in the 19th century. The site is one of the prime areas in the world where the full social, economic and technological process of industrialization through iron and coal production can be studied and understood. So this is the landscape on top of the mountain. It's a landscape which combines the works of nature and man, and as such it was inscribed as a cultural landscape by UNESCO. It is 33.8 square kilometers across the mountain. A section through the site shows that there's a dramatic change in levels from the lowest areas at the canal at Blaenavon up to the top of the mountain above Big Pit. The geology is the secret for why there was industrialization. Within the sandstone measures, which contain rich iron ore deposits, you can see these coal seams outcropping around the town of Blaenavon. And beneath that, lay a limestone layer. So these ingredients allowed the South Wales area, the heads of the valleys area, to become a leading area in the production of iron, steel and coal for a long period from about just before 1800 to the end of the century. With World Heritage Site status, we had to submit a management plan. We listed about 70 fully costed projects, one of the reasons we got World Heritage Site status, and also how we would deliver these through the Blaenavon Partnership. The Blaenavon Partnership was led by Blaenavon County Borough Council, the other local authorities with interest in the site, including Monmouthshire and the Brecon Beacons National Park, with the Welsh Assembly government agencies for heritage, for tourism and for economic development were also represented, as were the then British Waterways Board and the National Trust for Wales. Just a very brief history. This is the period of iron making we're talking about. This is at Merthyr just before 1800. And we're talking about 7 or 8 generations where sons followed fathers underground. This ceased in about 1980 and is fast fading into history. You won't see a scene like this in Blaenavon now, but it was the everyday scene in even up to about 1980. But it's more than that. It's about this early industrial society, a society of church and chapel, of bands and choirs. It's about comradeship and hardship, and about socialism, and even a bit about rugby. So, the vision of the partnership was to protect this cultural landscape so that future generations may understand the outstanding contribution South Wales made to the Industrial Revolution. By the presentation and promotion of the Blaenavon industrial landscape, it is intended to increase cultural tourism, provide education opportunities, and change perceptions of this area to assist economic regeneration. This is the plan of the area stretching across the mountain. The top half is within the Brecon Beacons National Park. The main attractions are spread across the landscape. We had this idea that while each attraction has its own individual presentation, we would unite them under the Blaenavon World Heritage Site brand and establish that as a strong brand. You can see our logo on the top right-hand side. Now, going through these attractions, the main monument within the World Heritage Site was the Blaenavon Ironworks, which were opened in 1789, and that time it was the most advanced technological ironworks in the world. By 1975, it was in a bad state of disrepair and dereliction, but following the works that have been done since World Heritage Site status, it is now the best preserved ironworks of its period in the world, including some pretty fancy high-tech interpretation. We have a problem of, it may be very attractive, but we have a problem of seasonality as far as visitors are concerned. Big Pit Coal Mine was one of the last to close in the area in 1980. It is now the National Coal Museum of Wales. There used to be hundreds, if not thousands, of coal mines in Wales. This is the only completely preserved mine above and below the ground. There's a lot of investment got in. That was the Gulbenkian Museum of the Year in 2005. The main attraction is the underground tour, which is led by former coal miners. But the thing, Blaenavon is a cultural landscape, and it's the context of the buildings and the town within the landscape that's important. This is a view of the mountain, and this is an interpretation of it in about 1812. You can see on the edge of the mountain the Gardenellis Forge, which was making iron artifacts, including early primitive railways, which you can see on this tramway, which goes around the mountain, on which these trams were pulled by ponies. It's another view of it. These illustrations by a local person, a wonderful artist called Michael Blaenavon. We used that network of tramways as the basis of footpaths and walks, one of them called Iron Mountain Trail. There's wonderful views over the national park. There's very interesting natural features, and this is an interface of the natural heritage and the cultural heritage, which is important. From the top of the mountain, down several hundred feet and 3 inclines, the tramway was taken down to the Monmouthshire Brecon Canal, and this is the wharf at Llanfoes. This was the warehouse for the iron, and the iron was then transported, iron and other materials, by barge down to Newport and then exported to the world. But the use of the canal as part of the infrastructure ceased when the railways arrived in about 1850s. Unfortunately, the railway also closed in the 1980s when Big Pit closed, and it was then taken over by some volunteers who've run it ever since. Recently we attracted a lot of money to extend the railway, and the volunteers laid the track as part of the contract. The project included improving the parking facilities and building a couple of new stations, one of them beside Great Pit. Other parts of the railway were included in a national cycleway coming from Newport up to Brumar, and this is a very popular cycleway. In 1815, an ironmaster died, and his sister Sarah Hopkins built the school, St. Peter's School, in memory of her brother. It's a Grade 2 listed building, and it was in a terrible condition even in 2005. We turned it into the UK's first dedicated World Heritage Centre, and it was opened in 2008. It's a lovely scheme. It brings nice modern architecture interfaced with careful restoration of the historic buildings. And the educational use is perpetuated in the building. And a lot of the interpretation material was provided by the people from the town. And now, after the town had been run down so long, they're able to take pride in their story being told to the world. St. Peter's Church was built by the ironmasters as well. This is one of the things about Blaenavon. You can see the movement away from agricultural economy, and now we have industrialists providing the churches and schools for the community. This church has also conservation work has taken place, and iron windows which have been lost have been replaced. These coffins there have got cast iron lids provided by the ironmaster. By the end of the 1800s, Blaenavon was prospering. We were exporting rails around the world. I've seen bits of rail in Japan, I've seen photos of it in New Zealand, and in Argentina, Iraq, and about all over the world, the rails from Blaenavon were exported. This building was built by subscriptions from the workers' wages and with their labour, and was completed in 1885. It's been in continuous community use since that time with a village with an institute committee, and recently a community heritage museum run entirely by volunteers has been set up in the Workmen's Hall. Blaenavon is the best preserved historic iron town in Wales, but you may see on the top left-hand corner the church and the institute. But it was in very poor condition, actually, the structural condition of the town. This is even a few decades ago, it was a prosperous little main street, but it was substantially 75% boarded up at the time of this initiative. The first two buildings that we improved were right in the very centre of the town. They were former council offices, which were listed building, in which we put the new town library, which had previously been proposed to be a flat-roofed red brick building on the edge of town. And we replaced the derelict town toilets for the use of visitors and local people. But most of the money came from Welsh Assembly for a housing renewal programme, and over 500 houses were upgraded in this way. Extensive consultation took place with the owners, and many of the traditional features were brought back into the buildings. One particular stretch of building was a derelict five or six shops at the bottom end of the main street. We brought them back as traditional cottages. This was a three-way winner. We demonstrated the traditional architecture of the cottages. We brought people back to live in the town, and we reduced the length of the main shopping street, which was totally untenable in the modern shopping environment. We concentrated our efforts in the main street on a core area. This is as it was, and this is a combination of new build and restoration work there. This was the second phase on the other side of the street, and you can see chimneys and other features from the past have been brought back. The access to that upper floors were from this lane. You can see on the left, this was a dreadful situation in any town. It used to be called Drug Alley. And we did a lot of work in the public realm, which has been used as an exemplar for other works elsewhere in the South Wales valleys. The establishment of a substantial number of volunteers and the training of the volunteers have been an important contribution. You can see top right, they're being trained and they're actually carrying out restoration of stone walls on the landscape. But they also take these guided tours, explaining in detail some of the natural and the industrial heritage attractions. And more recently, we've introduced young people as ambassadors. This followed on from a successful UNESCO Youth Summit for UK sites recently. Events are very important. We do Easter holiday events, we do Halloween events in the ironworks. World Heritage Day is a very important thing, and school children always take part. The biggest event we put on involved the school children, the town choirs, the town bands, and ended up in a magnificent fireworks display. But we're also into new build. This is a new hotel, and this is new housing, the first new private housing in about 100 years. This is to provide a range of housing because the houses are nearly all 2 up and 2 down, and we used a Banbury architect for advice on this. You can see the new and the flow down on the other side of the valley existing. Most importantly, we want the people to enjoy modern facilities as well as indulge in the heritage. Local school children were asked to name their new school, and they all voted for something called the Blaenavon Heritage School. Years of being in the World Heritage Parade probably convinced them of the importance of the heritage. But it's very important because youth used to be totally disillusioned in this area. So we have many ongoing issues. The area is still socially and economically deprived. The work that's been done, it's very hard to sustain. We can't get revenue funding, and I just cannot understand why we can't get a few pots of paint from Heritage Lottery. It's always got to be a mega kind of scheme. We have a huge difficulty sustaining quality in the town centre. Public sector finances has cost us the ability to get funding and also losing key staff. We have a derelict building, the Ironmaster's House, which we've been able to do anything about. However, it has been a successful project. We've got about £50 million invested across the area. National monuments have been saved and conserved. Tourism products have been extended. It's worth about £8.5 million annually. Major repairs to over 500 buildings, significant improvement to visitor facilities, car parks and signage. New business and employment created, a lot of that for local people. And the annual visitor numbers have doubled to well over 200,000 per year. We have educational programs developed, the World Heritage Centre and the Accredited Training Centre, with waymarked walks and cycleways established. There's an annual events program established, and community participation has been achieved. The change in community pride and perception is probably the greatest achievement. I like this photograph. I do like these young ladies, but I don't know what a few generations ago the coal miners would have thought about that. There were no ladies mining underground, but to me it keeps the tradition alive. It's part of the past, is now part of a future which is looking a bit more optimistic than it was. 90 years of decline cannot be changed in 20 years, and also the community disenchantment can't be changed, but increasingly the community are becoming participant in their own future. Thank you very much.